on Gmail. Esther, there's chocolate.
I was just handed some. Thank you, Lynn. You're always so accommodating. I didn't know the audience was welcome.
Has anybody heard from Dave?
I know. Those people.
I guess while we're waiting, on the agenda too, I just kind of copied, pasted, just some things, some key things that our membership voted on the survey, or I guess commented on the survey. So we just have to kind of go through it. Some of them were monetary, some of them weren't. And then I put in some negotiated agreement things that we need to break out when we close session.
Yeah, I have 3 negotiated agreement things that, I like to talk about.
Okay.
Okay, so here's, Justin, you wanna kind of talk through your proposed?
So after the last IBB meeting last week, what I think we had kind of come to is, what if we just put the base into the base and kind of created a shadow schedule? So it was kind enough to send me what he had worked on. I did a little bit slightly different because I wanted to maintain the 2% between steps. So for those of you who don't have it up on your computer, essentially it's using our existing salary schedule. Cell 4 on the existing salary schedule will now become cell 1, which is a little bit higher than the state required minimum, at 50,252, will be at 50,384. Cell 4 would become the P1 minimum, a little bit higher than the state's requirement, and then cell 14 would become the AP1 minimum. We talked about last time, if someone doesn't move between the residency or the career ladder rungs, that they would stay frozen. So in theory, if they're residency 1, 2, 3, they would naturally just progress to P1. You have a little bit more movement here. We do have quite a few staff members that stay at P5 for a long time. So once they get to cell 13, they would stay at cell 13 until they achieved AP status. And then at cell 14, that's the AP1 minimum. And they would move between cell 14 and cell 25. Every certificated staff that is currently in AP status this year will also be allowed to move up to cell 29 on the shadow schedule if they are currently on AP status this year. It doesn't mean they earned it this year. If they're getting a stipend this year, then they are eligible to be on that shadow schedule. I did send you guys a copy of kind of how that's played out with everything. I know there were some questions last week on what that looks like with just the general fund staff. We do have that information as well. Essentially, we have quite a few positions that we are having to replace because of the amount of retirements and resignations that we've had this year. So at the bottom of the IBB page, you can see in purple, I tried to outline very clearly who was being replaced and what position they were replacing, just to kind of help alleviate any of those questions. We did meet with the elementary and secondary teams today and went through all the cuts and confirmed the cuts with the elementary and secondary teams today. So your information has updated just a little bit to reflect that, because I had to make a couple of adjustments. So I pulled off 2 contingent positions because we're keeping 2 positions at one of the elementary or at the middle school. And so we pulled off the 2 contingent positions. If enrollment does go up in the fall,
find like a general, like
So
average and
I
put it
put
in there?
a
or what did you put
P1,
down?
because the tricky thing now with the state, with the way that the state's doing the minimum required salaries, they could be coming from another district, and we've already had a couple that are coming from another district, but some of those vacant positions, you can see they're on that list now.
Yeah.
You probably won't recognize their names because they're new,
Yeah.
but you can see that some of them are coming on at an AG1, and so for the new state standards, we have to pay them at least a sub 14. So that's kind of that's what I'm putting in there. I didn't start them at R1s.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. P1 might be a little conservative, but that's kind of the thought process behind it, and as we have people hired, it'll be easy to adjust. Yeah, and anticipating everyone's gonna take family benefits, because that's the most conservative approach as well, from a budgeting standpoint. So if that doesn't happen, obviously there's a little bit of salvage there, but we always have some fluctuation during the year, so, that's kind of the thought process behind that. I think I incorporated everything we talked about at the last meeting. Was there anything that you were expecting to see that you didn't see on this proposal?
Well, which proposal are you,
Well, just the scale itself.
okay, just the original, okay?
So just, yes, new scale.
Okay. And then will you walk us through how you decided to where to place people and the process they went through?
Yeah, give me just 1 second. So it was fairly easy, on where to place people. Everybody essentially just, if they had to be moved, they were moved. If they, and then I basically placed everybody where they were at on the scale this year. So usually that was a couple steps back. So that's that first scenario. If they are teal in their column, that is because they are making more than the state says for that career ladder run. And so that's not teal on their name, but on their actual cell number.
Okay.
That's the ones that technically I did blue because they're frozen, but that's why they're blue. I tried to highlight the ones that we had to change, because there are quite a few, like we talked about the last meeting, there are quite a few that we have to place higher, based on the state minimums. Then there's a version 2 tab, because when I did all of that, we actually were gonna have a little bit of salvage. So the version 2 tab was basically looking at anybody that wasn't getting at least a 2% increase and trying to get them to a 2% increase without making it a ton. And so that actually allowed us to kind of make people not, there's a couple of zeros still in there, because they're frozen. So, but other than that, everybody should have around a 2% increase. So, and that's still doable in the budget that we have.
What was your total cost for version 2?
Give me a second, I have a different one that, it's the same thing, I just put it into Excel, so I'm just trying to find it, because I closed it before I came in here. And it's been a long day.
Yeah, when I looked earlier, but it was like, I think like $6,000 difference.
It's a little bit more than that, because we took those contingent positions out.
That's with all those contingent and vacant positions we filled.
Right, so we did get permission. We did give permission to building to go ahead and post positions today, because we know that we need to hire those positions. There are really no contingent positions being built into this budget at this point in time. So, at the bottom, like I sick leave cash out to help with that benefit. It will provide that higher average for that. I think this helps us with making sure that our people are moving on the career ladder, with having steps being frozen if you're not making that movement. I know from an HR perspective, not having put in all those AP stipends would be a lot of less work for our HR team to track.
And that's not,
It's minimal,
that's
but-
not my issue. I think where this is a win-win is definitely, again, I go back to our veteran staff and getting your daily rate of pay back up again for your unused sick leave for when you retire, because that is huge. Just getting this in the base, and then also protecting that base, because it's no longer a stipend. And so,
It can never be taken away.
And obviously, if there, I do think we have wiggle room. I have a couple people that are like 1.93, try to get them to 2%, but if there's, I mean, just like we did this last time, if we need to make an adjustment, we can always talk about that on a case-by-case basis if that's needed.
I think this scenario is probably the fairest.
Yeah.
And it makes the most sense, and it also provides incentive, for your people to get out of that P5 area and, continue to grow great teachers.
Jessica, is the intent for cell 25 as people start moving out of the shadow schedule to increase that
So
as we move forward?
the plan is, I mean, obviously, if we ever do an increase to the base, or if the state increases minimum, then obviously ours would follow suit. So right now, even though cell 25 is 81,878, if the state does a 5% CEC on admin and classified and then applies it to this, then we're gonna have to go up that 5% as well. So we're gonna have to make sure we're meeting those minimums still.
Yeah.
So, but yes, the plan is to top everyone out unless they're grandfathered at that cell 25.
So what would we tell a member that isn't eligible for aid this year? Like, and they look at it and they're gonna see like, the most I could make is 81.
Well, the most they
Versus
could
a-
make before was 76,378.
No, I know, I would like, like, let's walk through what we would tell that person versus somebody that currently is getting aids right now, it's looking like they could get 89. So I guess our question is the process moving forward, like, if you move like 5%, you put it on the base and it goes down, then would we possibly maybe move 26 as like our new, you know what I mean, like at our bottom rung, if we, like how we put a new base and it trickles down and then those numbers all get bigger?
Yeah, and that's.
Would you be eligible to get that then, you know what I mean, like would that no longer need to be in the shadow schedule?
I don't ever anticipate having more than 25 cells,
Okay, so your idea is just phase out and.
which is what we currently have. We only have
Okay.
25 cells.
I didn't know if the intent was like to get rid of the shadow and continue
The
on.
intent is to get rid of the shadow. So as people start retiring or leaving, then eventually we will have no one on that shadow schedule. The whole thought process behind it, as we've talked before, as we have our veteran teaching staff leaving, our weighted average salary goes down. And as our weighted average salary goes down, our salary-based apportionment goes down. And that means we have less money to pay people. So we have to get this closer to what we're receiving from the state, and this allows us to do that gradually over time as people leave. So that is the reason behind it.
I thought you were gonna try to like slowly, I don't know if that makes sense, like, they would no longer be walked to the April new people, but that would be like now your new base and stuff, but your idea is just 25.
Yeah, so really, and for all intents and purposes, the published salary schedule will go to step 25.
But that number could increase as we
Yeah,
go.
yeah, if there's an
as we
increase of
go.
it, so say the state comes around next year and gives a 2% increase to the base, then that
And the whole thing.
50,252 has to go up 2%, and then everything trickles down from there.
But we are all on the same page of locking in, like, if you don't qualify for aid, you're staying there until, I mean, we're really trying to incentivize.
I'm just trying to look at the people that are, so if we look at our current salary schedule, we're at 76,378, I think it's step 22 is our top end right now.
Right.
If you add the aid stipend, the full aid stipend onto that, you know, they're making 87, 887 or whatever it is.
Right.
So somebody could argue, well, that's gonna short me eventually $6,000.
But
You see what I'm
then
saying? Because
again-
our new top end's 81.
But again, the tricky thing is, we don't get dollar for dollar on
Right.
that youth stipends that we have to
I'm
be
just-
able to be more responsible about that. That's the
Yeah.
unfortunate thing. So at some point, we have to make a cutoff.
Right.
This seems to be the most fair. I mean, you are still, the 76 through 78 to the 81, that's still more than we talked out before. So we're trying to honor that.
I agree 100%.
The
I'm just
reality
trying to-
And
is,
to be-
doing it 100%, even though we're not funded 100%, it's not sustainable.
Somebody will ask that
Right,
question.
and then to be honest, if they start here at P1 and P2, P3, P4, P5, they're gonna skip from 8 to 14. There's gonna be a huge jump right there. And so that's something that we also have to keep in mind, because just because they don't take this whole entire time to get to P5, there's gonna be some big years where we have huge jumps.
Yeah.
Well, and they're gonna be making money faster in their career.
Exactly.
In their RPO.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they're being rewarded for,
And this is honestly best case scenario.
Yeah.
they're being rewarded for advancing on the career ladder.
Yeah.
Because
So-
if you stay on track and do it year by year by year, then in theory, you could go from an 8 to a 14 in 1 year. Which we've seen with what we're implementing because of the statement money.
So, any more discussion about this? Do we need to take a vote?
And we're voting on the second version, correct?
This one on the screen in front of you, not the one that was presented last week, we're literally just voting on the scale itself.
But not where we place people on the scale, is that what version
So-
2 is? Because version 2 is more about where we place people, it looked like, rather than.
In version 2, like I said, it's still well within the budget for what we have, and it's, I think, equitable as far as what we've talked about with the parameters with the salary schedule. The only people that are not receiving an increase are the people that are frozen. So, and obviously people that are new, those are the negative 100% on there.
And so then in the shadow schedule down on the bottom, do people have a chance to go down?
Yes.
Within that?
Yes.
If they're in there?
If
Yeah.
you're currently on AP this year, so anybody that's gray on both of those
Yeah.
versions, anybody that's gray, there's quite a few people that are still on there would still be eligible to move between.
So you would, 2 people this year would now move to cell 27 IBB, right?
Not necessarily, it depends on where they're at on the salary schedule this year. But they would be, so say they were on a cell 22 on the new version, they could in theory go up to a cell 29 because they're being grandfathered into that shadow schedule because they were on an EP stipend this year.
And when we put money on the base in future years, it would also go
It would go
all
to
the way
everybody.
through,
Yeah.
including the salary schedule as well. Or the tuition.
Yep, until all 120 people, which they'll probably all ask me, are off of the shadow schedule.
You did a great job putting this together. I know it's
Absolutely.
So, I know.
The thing that I like about it is, even though when you start on the 8th, I mean, the argument could be, well, we're not officially getting the 11,500, but knowing that people are frozen, knowing that you can move through that salary schedule all the way from 14 to 25, that's a difference of $20,000 you're gonna be making more than anybody else. And I think that, to me, that's a fair argument to make for those people.
Well, and the drop day payment amount is significant.
Significant. Well, and retirement.
Well, it's your Medicaid.
So, are you ready to vote?
So just to be clear, we're just voting on the salary schedule, and we'll go to the next item, which would be where to place people, correct? Is that how we're voting? or-
No, she's-
Typically, we don't
Vote
vote
again.
on where people are placed in IBB, that's something that we go through after that fact.
Yeah.
Like, for the most part, it's, last time we did this, it was like, IBB is just approving the salary schedule.
But we talked about where placement is,
Yeah.
so,
And we
and
can,
that's recorded, so
and we
we're
can
gonna
still
do what
bring
we
that
said
up.
we were gonna do.
We can still bring it up and
Yeah.
talk about individual cases if they.
Yeah.
No, what I mean
So
is
we're
like, I
talking
wanna
about
know
where
what
she
I'm
works.
You got 2%.
Yeah.
The version 2, where everybody, our goal was
So,
around 2.
but both of them use this salary schedule, so.
Yeah.
Agreed, that's what I was saying, but
Yeah.
I just wanna know what I'm telling people, if they're gonna fall either the first one or the second one.
Once we approve this, the second one is still well within what we can do for next year, absolutely. So if that's the case, we approve this one, we all agree that the second one is the version that we wanna go with, I'm saying that we can support that financially. And that's the one that when someone asks for, they're gonna be placed, that
That's what we're,
the
that's gonna be our
LJSD
metric.
members will
Okay,
sit down and
yeah.
say, this is where, was it you, Bill, last time, that made it really handy, gave me lookup tables so that not everybody
Yeah,
is seeing everybody.
I can do that.
I would appreciate your help with that, I do.
Well, and even the page you sent us isn't that hard, I mean,
It's
all-
not
they're
hard,
all-
but it was more of a, trying to keep confidentiality.
I mean, it's all, it is public, but still, it stirs everybody's minds messed up whenever they look at everybody's wages.
Okay, so, we're voting. I don't really know this process, voting, so I'm gonna let Brooke take the lead, I'm just getting us going.
Okay, well, all of those that are in favor of this, proposed salary schedule, thumbs up. Bob? Okay, anybody sideways on this, neutral? Okay, Bob, do you wanna have some discussion?
No, I guess, I'm only one board member, so I'm going to take a deep process.
Okay, sounds good.
Any thumbs down?
Okay.
You guys, and I just wanna say this, I appreciate, I know that you guys have been working tirelessly on looking at everything, and, I mean, Jessica has put in an excruciating amount of hours, and I just appreciate that. I feel like this is a win-win for everybody, in light of the current budget situation and the last minute, information that we've received, so I think it's been all hands on deck, and I appreciate all of you, but this has been a huge undertaking for Jessica, so thank you for all the in hours.
So with this salary schedule, we do have some negotiated agreement language, that I really need. It's gonna be initial placement, for new teachers. Now, obviously, if they're an R1, a P1, or an H1, they're gonna go into that first scale there. Jessica and I were having some discussion today, in honoring our veteran staff. If they're, let's say, an H4, we feel new people should still come in on that H1 step, on there.
Can I just talk about the why a little bit, so that brainstorming people, so this is what we're seeing a lot of is, let's just say side by side, person A, person B. Obviously, we wanna recruit and retain and all of that, right, but it is recruit and retain. And so we have people that will come in and all of their years of experience in Lakeland, let's just say it's 10 and 10, and we accept all of that. Somebody who has 10 years of experience gets placed on the salary schedule, not necessarily based on years, but based on where they fall, right, as we change and adjust and adopt. Well, then somebody else coming in new, it's based on years of experience, so we definitely have the exact same people with the exact same experience. And the person coming in with outside experience gets placed higher than our internal people. That happens in classified, and it happens in certified all of the time. More often in classified than probably across the board, right, Brooke? It's more in classified, but, so we're trying to figure out, like, I definitely wanna retain, you obviously wanna retain people. I definitely want to recruit, and we have situations where, you know, when we're so close in border cities and border districts, like, somebody's like, well, I can apply here and get 2,000 more, so, like, I definitely want us to be able to offer competitive wages, but at the same time, like, I have a really hard time with the people who have stayed with Lakeland literally not getting the same pay. That's really problematic, I think, for everybody, and so either we say, you know, and I'm not trying to not cut people's experience, but if we're not going to count years of experience when we do placement on our salary schedule, I don't necessarily think it's fair to count years of experience. So I don't know how to do that, but somehow, but that's the crux of our problem is at this point, we definitely have people that are just like, well, I literally have the same experience and this person is making, in some cases, $3,000 or $4,000 more
Yeah.
with identical experience.
Yeah.
Did I capture that accurately? So how do we rectify that? That's something that we want, something in the negotiated agreement so that it's fair. And again, we definitely want to recruit, but it can't be at the cost of our people, in my opinion. I'm just one person on this team, but I feel strongly about that.
I mean, if you have somebody that is an 8-1 coming in, they're already on cell 14. And so.
So does that rectify it automatically, like regardless of where you're placed, could the
For that
solution
cell,
be?
yeah.
Well, could the solution be if your residency, whatever, like you started 1, if you come in, and so it's just, that's.
This seems like it should be a place wherever you, like, with the state.
So you feel like if they're an 8-4, a new teacher coming in and they're an 8-4, you feel like they should be placed on 1, 2,
No, on
3,
cell
4, on cell 17, so 8-4 should be where an 8-1 would be on a new person. That's kind of what I'm thinking, because that honors our veteran staff. I mean, they've stayed here, and so I know, I mean.
Another brainstorm would be to look at somebody with the exact same experience that's been here, find out the cell they're on, and just put that person a cell back. You know, that way you could still recruit, you're losing
Yeah,
a ton of money.
because the piece would be the competitive piece, and like, you know, when you have some of those hard to fill positions, so like, I totally understand advocating for that, but then it just feels inequitable when it's the same experience, and, you know, because I did it somewhere else, I'm making more money.
So I think what Jason was saying, maybe I misunderstood him, is you find somebody in our, so if you have
Mhm.
5 years experience, you look at a teacher that's been in Lakeland since the beginning, that has 5 years, where are they placed? And we place new people at
You
that
just
same,
one
I
step behind,
One
that,
step
that would
behind.
be, would that be easy, Brooke?
And, I mean, that's gonna be a little bit more legwork, but yeah, I mean.
I mean, we still have to do the minimums regardless.
Yeah,
And
yeah, if they're the
well, we
first.
have to spreadsheet that
Yeah,
as
but
well.
we have to do them.
Do you guys feel like that's fair?
I think that's fair, and it also allows us to help recruit. Because if they know they're gonna be going, if they're AP5, and they're going all the way back to AP1 in ours.
Right.
That's
No, I
a huge,
totally
there's
get
no one's
that.
gonna come here for that.
Exactly.
I mean, that's why if anyone with
Yeah.
experience, we can't go anywhere else because we.
So one step below current placement, you guys feel like that would be fair, and Brooke can.
With comparable years of experience.
Mhm.
So they have to meet the career ladder minimum and then 1 follow-up. So I think it's important that we have, that they have to, because most of these teachers that we're hiring right now are certificated teachers in the state of Idaho, so it's easy for us to know them up.
Yeah.
So I just think it's important that we have that caveat that if we go
So
there
if
and then place.
Brooke drafts some language, we can send that out, if this is what it would look like, and you guys.
Yeah, cause can you scroll down in the negotiated agreement to where our experience is right now? Page,
Where's
page
the
4.
old one?
Yeah, that's it, that's
It's
it.
right here.
Did you create a working one? You want to move that into our agenda?
Here,
It's the
let
one
me,
from last year.
Is there?
let me share one with you.
Huh?
Is there an agenda somewhere?
I'm just gonna share it with
Yeah,
you, Bill.
it's in, Lisa shared it out with us all last week.
Bill, are you in that agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely.
Yeah.
Jessica, you should.
I'm not even close, so.
Right. And I know that we're not negotiating for classified, but in my mind, that would be the same for classified. It would be
Yeah, I agree.
universal, yes?
So basically,
Yeah,
this
over
then,
classified.
this chart needs to go away, and we just need to add verbiage that says,
Is somebody capturing those notes? Bill, will you put that, we're gonna take this chart, on page,
I'm trying to make this.
oh,
But like if somebody comes in as an 8-5, would they just be put as 24 then?
So let's say if they're an 8-5, then I have to find somebody that has, and let's say they have
20 years experience.
20 years of experience. I have to find a veteran staff here that has 20 years of experience. see where they're placed, and then place that staff member a step behind.
So like, we would put them in the grandfather.
No,
Okay, so
no
is
new
what I'm
people,
saying,
no
right.
new people will be put into that gray space,
So
no new
then-
people.
So what would happen in that case, if,
25.
like, what if a person's in the shadow, cause that's according to where we are, I feel like, so if you're in cell 27, you would just go to 25, or like 20 years of experience with 5, so that's why I'm trying to, like, if we're placed in, say, 27. Would that person just go to 25 then?
And that would be more than 6
Yeah,
months.
because no one new is going on
Right,
that
yeah.
shop schedule yet.
Yeah, so they would just get.
So kind of very different than really the old days, because you've said it yourself, like, no veteran teachers can afford to leave our district knowing that they're only gonna give 10 years of experience. So in essence, like, we could have somebody come here with 20 years of experience and now end up way up on our salary schedule. So.
Unless we wanna cap it.
I mean,
Well, that's what I'm wondering, I mean, because this is a huge shift.
the cleanest way to do it is based on the state career ladder. So
Yeah.
if they're AP anything, we would just put them on cell, what is that, 14? We would just put them on cell 14, and then they move up. If they're an R3, we could start them at cell 1, knowing that we might have a bigger jump next year. But that would be potentially the cleanest way for someone new coming in is, we just look at your career ladder status, and we place you at cell 1 of that career ladder status.
And it might actually be quite comparable in
Should
that
be
way.
close.
It should be
To
close.
me, that's,
It should be close,
like-
but that's the easiest way, and then we're not
It's
having to go
easiest.
compare
Exactly.
contrast.
Mhm.
It's just, you're new, you're P3, I'm gonna put you on cell 4. And then you can move up.
Logistically, that would be a lot
The
better.
easiest one.
And I like, honestly, that it brings up Connie's point, like, I don't like that we would necessarily have somebody come in and make more than a teacher that's been there for a long period of time, or, you know what I mean, like.
And it still honors their
tax
teacher
it.
experience, because they had to teach that long to get into the AP status or P status or whatever, so, the tricky ones are people coming from out of state that don't have a ranking.
And I have to go in and do.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of paperwork there, but I think that for us would be the cleanest way to do it, is if you're coming in and you're AP, we're just gonna put you on the AP1 minimum. And that allows them to still have movement in the district.
So, do we wanna,
You send this to me.
I did send it to Lynn.
What am I posting?
If you wanna bring it
This
up.
should,
I don't have the deal.
I do.
I was like, I don't have it.
Okay, so this is,
Let's take off that one thing.
yeah, so Bill has already put in,
Perfect.
here, pressed it.
You want me to do something?
Okay, I shared it. Anybody else? You can try to, let me just share everybody now. But these guys, you want to skip it, I don't want people editing. And then I already shared with you, Shannon.
If I could, I got it.
Anybody else? Bob doesn't have his own paper.
You said no.
We still put in
I'll just have the Yes, can we vote on it, all for this language of placement, thumbs up? Anybody neutral? Was that Bob neutral? Thumbs up, okay, Connie was a thumbs up, all thumbs up, okay. So I think this one is probably the salary schedule and the way we're placing people is gonna take care of this, because on our original, on the way that we were placing people here, I had, and we changed the salary schedule, I had a teacher, suggesting that maybe he would resign and then come back and be placed at a higher level. But I think the way that we have it structured should take care of that, so we don't need to talk about
Do you
that.
wanna talk about one thing though with that, if someone does resign and they're on the shadow schedule and they come back, I do not think we put them back on the shadow schedule.
I think we could put that language in there. I would say the likeliness though of people who are in that shadow schedule of them leaving is very minimal, because they're getting close to retirement, and plus they would lose years of experience in another district. So, I mean, we could put that layer in there just in case.
I'm thinking either way, I just, it's like the scenarios that run through my head.
So far, we've agreed to the salary schedule, we've agreed to our placement, we just need to put some language in there.
And the language, we just put
Yeah.
on the language.
Yep, okay. Wasn't there some other stuff you wanted to add?
So, I mean, on this, do you think we would have people that would end up, that are in that gray area, that would end up leaving and potentially, I mean, maybe you guys are
I think you
waiting
better,
for admin.
I think if that's the goal, you better put it in there, because
I
you never
think
know
so
what
too.
the scenario.
So are we putting it just right, where are we putting that?
I would put it, down, like, probably in that same area, but anybody that is in the grandfathered cell, if they resign and come back, they will be placed,
Could we put it directly under the link that we're gonna put into the new salary schedule?
Sure.
So what would
Doesn't
happen
have to go in salary.
if you take a principal job and then you resign from that and go back into the classroom? You would lose your shadow schedule, is that what you're saying?
No.
Like if I had my principal, like if I had an admin endorsement,
No.
and they said, we really need you to be a principal, and I'm like.
This is not about movement within the district,
Okay.
this is about you
If you
step
resign.
out of.
I just didn't know if you have to like
Yeah.
resign from teaching to then come in.
No, this is
Okay.
about leaving the district and then coming back.
You could leave it report it as if you leave the school.
Okay.
Right.
Do we need to add a description on frozen steps?
Probably.
Yeah.
It's on the schedule that we approved, there was a little blurb that said,
That's an employee cannot move to,
So should we have it
but
go?
I don't specifically say that they're frozen, that there are existing people frozen.
Do we wanna just pull that verbiage and put it as a C?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm trying to be aware.
Your wordsmithing, I think.
Are we placing them by the number above?
We would end up placing them, let's say if they're on if they are on a shadow schedule and they're 8 status, they're gonna be placed on that 8 cell one.
So again, like following the rule of.
According to the
according to
Yeah.
the rule of.
Yeah. We want to retain our veterans.
It happens in the corporate world, one thing, I mean, a lot of times you.
Okay, what's the next one?
Now, we just need to put verbiage in there, kind of like we have what Jessica added in the salary
So
schedule.
the salary schedule just says certified staff remain frozen if they do not advance to the next rung of the career ladder.
I think that's perfect, can we just copy and paste that?
Yeah.
Will remain frozen if they do not advance to the next rung of the career ladder.
be some heartburn with this one, because we do have some of those 0% people, and I guess their argument would be, well, we didn't know, and everyone else, but I guess you gotta start somewhere.
How long have we been paying people money for living at eight?
And how long have we been trying to promote it?
Since before that.
Well, at some point, I mean, if this is not getting money for it,
We have
it can't be,
20 staff that are frozen.
So you'll just, so if I'm in 5 and I don't get my 8, like next year, then I'm just gonna stay in 5 next year.
Yes.
And I'll stay there until
you get
14.
Okay.
And then I'll jump to 14.
Because legitimately, if you
Right.
don't get it, the state's not gonna pay the
Right.
district.
But in
not us.
theory, we still have a lot of steps in between there, cause remember, we're starting P1s on cell 4. They have from cell 4 to cell 13 to get to 8.
No, but what
So
so then
you
I
still
still,
get
you could
staff.
still move down. is what
You
you're
can
saying.
still move down up to cell 13, at cell 13.
Okay, cause the way I read this is you're just staying where you're at until you hit the next one.
So
like
maybe
if I
when
was
we're
at
being
5,
frozen, where you, where
Maybe we
you are.
say will be capped,
Yeah, maybe
something
capped at the highest.
career ladder.
within that, rung.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, to Connie's point, at some point, if we're not getting money, we can't continue to, and ultimately, the whole point of it is incentivizing great teaching, so.
Just need to make sure that all, I know you guys work on collaboration with admin, but it just seems like there's some discrepancies there of.
We worked on the language and put some caveats in there for that, through that sole lens.
Cause we all benefit, obviously, and the more people that get there, you know.
Right, build the district as a whole.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yep, agreed.
And like I said, if you filter on a spreadsheet for that teal color and FY26 cell, you'll be able to see the 20 that are frozen.
there's one cell that didn't make any sense. It's bright red, line 238. Is it different than everybody else's?
Are you?
Oh, that's, we have to do a Form 10 for that individual.
I
If
didn't
you
know
notice,
what-
if you notice the cell name, it doesn't match anybody
That's
else's.
what I was like,
It's
is it a
placed
typo
on an
or?
old career ladder,
So we
and
just-
they've never been moved over, so I have to do a correction.
We just have to-
So that was me making sure that recognized.
Cell 15.
Stay on top of it.
Sorry, I just saw it, I'm like, Swan is weird, is
It
it a
is
typo or is it?
So do you guys feel like A, B, and C is something we can all live with? So initial placement will be the lowest rung of the employee's current career ladder placement. If they're AP5, we will put them on AP1. An employee eligible for 24-25 shadow that resigns from Lakeland Joint School District will be placed according to the rule above. 12, what is that? 128, can't be. Certified staff will not advance into the next placement rung if they do not advance to that rung of the state career ladder.
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
Certified staff will not advance into the next placement rung.
Probably not.
If they do not advance on the state career ladder.
Yeah.